Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're diving into a type of car that feels like a bit of a riddle, the plug-in hybrid. I mean, it's got a gas tank, but it also has an electric plug. So is it truly the best of both worlds, or is it just a complicated compromise? Let's dig in and figure it out. So you might be asking, why are we even talking about plug-in hybrids right now? Well, because something really unexpected is happening. You know, for the longest time, the smart money was on pure electric cars just dominating everything. The prediction was they'd outsell plug-in hybrids 5-1. But in China, which is the biggest car market in the world, that script has been totally flipped. The auto giant BYD now actually sells more plug-in hybrids than pure EVs. And that is a huge deal, a trend that might just show us where the rest of the world is headed.
But okay, before we can really get what a plug-in hybrid is, we kind of need to zoom out and look at the whole family tree of cars, right? Let's just quickly map out the entire spectrum so it's crystal clear where one thing ends and the next begins.
All right, first up, the one we all know, the good old internal combustion engine, or ICE car. This is your standard gas or diesel vehicle. Burns fuel, makes power. Simple, familiar, it's our starting point. Then you've got your classic hybrid, the HEV. Think Toyota Prius, that's the icon here. It's got a small battery and an electric motor that helps out the gas engine to make it more efficient. But here's the absolute key. There is no plug. You only ever fill it up at a gas station.
And way over on the other end of the spectrum, you have the battery electric vehicle, or BEV. This is your pure EV, just a big battery, an electric motor, and that's the whole shebang. No gas tank, no tailpipe. It runs on nothing but electricity from a plug.
And that right there brings us to the star of today's show, the plug-in hybrid, or PHEV. It lands smack dab in the middle of everything we just talked about. It's got the gas tank, like a hybrid, but it also has that plug, just like an EV. And that combination lets you do most of your daily driving on pure, cheap electricity. But then it can switch over to the gas engine whenever you need it for, a long road trip.
Okay, so you think you know what a PHEV is now, right? Well, this is where it gets interesting, because it turns out PHEV isn't just one thing. There are actually two completely different ways to build one, and they create two very different driving experiences.
So think of it like this. You've got your traditional parallel PHEV. The basic idea here is you're taking a gas car and electrifying it. You add a motor, you add a battery, but the gas engine is still fundamentally connected to the wheels and can drive them directly. But then you've got the series plug-in, or what's called an EREV, an extended range electric vehicle. This is the total opposite approach. You start with a pure EV, and you add a small gas engine that acts only as a generator to make more electricity. That engine never, ever drives the wheels, and that's why these can have a much longer all-electric range. And just when you think you've got it figured out, the technology is already mashing these two ideas together. Some of the newest cars are using what's called a series parallel system, where the car's computer is smart enough to switch back and forth on the fly, deciding what's most efficient. Should the engine drive the wheels, or should it just make electricity? Pretty clever stuff.
All right, that's a lot of theory, but what does it actually feel like to drive one of these things? Let's get out of the textbook and get behind the wheel.
So in a typical PHEV, your daily errands can be totally silent, just gliding along on battery power. It's smooth, it's quiet, but when you really step on it or you start going up a big hill, that gas engine has to kick in. Now sometimes it's really smooth, like in a Honda. Other times, like in a Jeep Wrangler PHEV, you definitely feel and hear it when that engine roars to life. An EREV, on the other hand, feels just like a pure EV pretty much all the time. You get that instant, smooth, quiet acceleration. And when the battery runs down and that little gas generator turns on, you might hear this faint, constant hum in the background. It's a little strange at first because the engine noise doesn't match how fast you're going. It's just humming away at one steady, efficient speed to charge the battery. Now, most of these cars have a bunch of buttons on the dash that let you feel like you're in control. You can force it to use only the battery, you can put it in a hybrid mode that blends the two, or you can even tell it to save the battery for later. But here's the thing, and this is probably the best advice I can give you. Honestly, just leave it in the default mode. The car is way smarter than we are at figuring out the most efficient way to run itself. Just let it do its thing. Okay, so that covers the driving experience. But what about actually living with one? What's the day-to-day like? Well, it really all comes down to one simple habit: charging.
There are basically three ways to charge. Level 1 is just using the regular outlet in your wall. It's slow, sure, but since PHEVs have smaller batteries, plugging it in overnight is usually more than enough to get a full charge. Level 2 is faster. It uses a 240-volt outlet, like the one for your clothes dryer. And then there's DC fast charging, which is super quick, But you don't even need to worry about it, because most PHEVs can't even use it. The big takeaway here? For most PHEV owners, that simple level 1 plug in your garage is all you're ever going to need.
Now, I know the world of EV plugs can feel like a total mess of acronyms and standards, but here's the good news for PHEVs. You can pretty much ignore all of that. For just about any non-Tesla plug-in hybrid in North America, this J772 plug is the only one that matters for your everyday charging at home. Simple as that.
All right, we've talked tech, we've talked driving, we've talked charging, so let's get down to it. The bottom line. Is a PHEV actually right for you?
Well, let's look at the numbers. We'll use the super popular Toyota RAV4 as an example. The data from the EPA is pretty clear. The regular hybrid saves you a decent chunk of change on gas compared to the gas-only model. But the plug-in hybrid version? It saves you the most money by a long shot. But, and this is the biggest but of the whole conversation, these savings only, and I mean only, happen if you actually plug the car in.
And there's another cool perk that all these electrified cars share. It's called regenerative braking. Basically, when you slow down, the electric motor works in reverse to recapture that energy and put it back in the battery. Not only does this make you more efficient, but it enables something called one-pedal driving, where you can do most of your slowing down just by lifting off the accelerator. It makes stop-and-go traffic so much less of a chore. It's a real quality-of-life upgrade.
And that brings us to what is, without a doubt, the single most important point of this entire conversation. I want you to really let this sink in. If you don't plug in your plug-in hybrid, you should just buy a regular hybrid. If you don't plug it in, you are basically just hauling around a very heavy, very expensive battery for absolutely no reason.
I love this analogy because it just nails it. Think about it. If you get a dog, you're signing up to walk it. That's part of the deal. If you don't like the idea of walking a dog, you get a cat, right? It's self-sufficient. Well, it's the exact same thing here. If you get a PHEV, you're signing up for the small, easy task of plugging it in every night. If that sounds like a hassle, then the regular hybrid, the cat, is probably the better choice for you.
So at the end of the day, it all boils down to this one simple question. This car gives you two ways to fuel up: a plug for cheap, clean electricity and a gas tank for go-anywhere convenience. Every single day, you get to choose. And your gut answer to that question right now probably tells you everything you need to know about whether a PHEV is the right car for you. Thanks for tuning in.